So during my interview, one of the most surprising responses I got was to the question, how did your personality, or when was a time when your personality affected the way you resolved a conflict? And I think that was interesting to me because I think a lot of people have a hard time admitting that sometimes their own personalities affect the way they they resolve conflict. So a lot of the times his personality affected the way not only to resolve the conflict, but it also affected the way people responded to the conflict in itself. He was, when he first started working in this company, he was really young. He was a foreigner. He was just coming from another country. And so there was a lot of things that he didn't understand about the country and also about the work culture in itself. In many countries around the world, business is done in a more casual way. It's not so, maybe some would call it professional or more restrictive in a way. People are more of, they trust your word and not necessarily the rules. So it was really different for him. Also, as an Afro Latino, Pedro was having issues accepting the fact that people were considering him as an African American, and with that, they had a lot of assumptions about him. And also, there was a lot of expectations for him to react or to act a certain way. So, every time there was a conflict, um, people would think that he's the way he would act was offensive, and he was just a rebel and not necessarily wanting to work with them. So at the beginning, that was something that he really had to consider, and he really had to change. Um, at some point, I saw that we were very similar rather than different because even though I knew American culture maybe a lot more than him when I came to the States, it was a different place to be, and I had to adapt. I had not only lived in my home country, but I had also lived in in another first world country, if you want to call it like that. So I felt like I kind of knew how business was done here, but people still had a lot of assumptions about who I was and who I represented, because of the way I looked and because of my accent and all of that. And so it was really difficult to learn the way people do business here. Um, a lot of that was the contribution of, again, my culture and where I came from, and just people's assumptions, I guess. It was also the fact that there was a lot of people that I didn't think that were willing to show me the ropes. I think, again, people expect you to just follow the leader and kind of learn the ropes that way. But I think a lot of the times it would be easier to avoid conflict when you know how the place works. And I think there was a lot of the similar situation with Pedro. I think if he had somebody that would probably walk with him and kind of explain to him how things worked, he would have had an easier time when he first started. Um, I think later on, I think I realized that one of the biggest insights I got from my interview was the fact that with all these issues came, oh, not issues, but with all the stuff that he got to go through to resolve all these conflicts, there was a lot of wisdom at the end of the day. now that he's older and now that he is a little bit higher in the company, and he is doing another job in a way. He takes this very seriously. He uh, now um, uses his wisdom and uses his lessons to teach others that were or in a similar situation than when he came. He advises people or encourages people to listen to what others have to say and know what you just want to hear from others, and also to listen without interruption. I think a lot of the times, because we're not hearing what we want to hear, we interrupt, and we kind of try to put in our minds, we think that we're putting them back in the track, but sometimes that makes things worse. I think for me, I will adapt this style not only in my professional life, but I think this past year I've been really working really hard to listen first and not get so angry around my family. Being all together in the house and stuff like that. It's we've had to use a lot of these concepts just to solve conflicts because we spend so much more time together. So listening and without interruption is something that I've been working super hard this year. Um, I think if I had to think about one scenario um, that I could have done better at work, um, or I can still work to make better at work, would be that I have a lot of issues with wasting my time. So but I think a lot of that comes from how I feel and not necessarily how things are really are sometimes. So when I'm asked to do something and then I know that someone else is doing the same thing, I feel like we are both wasting our times, because at the end of the day, sometimes the projects or just the research or the things that we're asked to do are not even used, and we have two people doing the same thing when we could divide and conquer. And maybe instead of fighting it all the time, sometimes you just have to take it with a grain of salt and just kind of just do it, make the best out of it. Overall, I think the interview was interesting. I think um, conflict is such a conflict resolution is such a skill, and it's not something that we learn naturally. It's something that now that I have a small child, I can understand how many of these things are learned when you're young, in the playground, on play dates, and I'm encouraged to learn more and to read more about it and to just learn from others like Pedro, who is now a person like he's full of wisdom, and he is just learned so much during this time, and he is very successful. So that was my interview with Pedro and my answers. Thank you.